Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to paint this beautiful soft wet and wet watercolor tree, and I'll also be giving you many tips and tricks along the way. So let's begin. So as you can probably tell, I've already finished the sky and the foreground, and there's a reason I did that and didn't show you how to paint this on a blank sheet of paper. So I'm going to explain that to you later. So we're going to start with using masking fluid on the tree area. I'm using an old brush for this, and before I dipped it in fluid, I covered the brush with soap so it protects the hair after the fluid is done. Alright, so now our masking fluid is dry and let's start painting. Here I'm using Hooker's Green Deep, Cobalt Blue, Burnt Sienna and Primary Yellow, but you can use any matching colors that you have right now with you. So I'm going to take my 1.5 inch flat brush and I'm going to re-wet the sky, and you want to make sure that you don't use too much water and scrub too hard or use too much pressure. You just want a gentle, light feather touch to make sure that the background does not get lifted again. And it would be good if you let the sky dry on the paper and stay for maybe an hour before you do this technique, so that the color doesn't get lifted and gets locked inside the paper. So we're going to start with the lighter shade, which is Primary Yellow. So here is a trick, guys. When you do this, you want to make sure you have less water in your paintbrush and a thicker mix of paint. If you have too much water in your paintbrush, as you can see, the paper is already wet. When you put the paintbrush on the paper, the color is going to spread like crazy, okay? And here you want a very controlled spread of the paint. How do you achieve that? Well, you have less water in your paintbrush, you have a thicker mix of paint, and you want to use small circular strokes, okay? So here I've found the perfect balance of water on the paper, in the paintbrush, and a thicker mix of paint. So here we can easily control how far our paint travels. So it is giving a very soft wet and wet look, yet it's not going all crazy bonkers. So this is actually a technique how to control your watercolor, and I've made a specific video on it. And I think if you want to really improve as a watercolor artist, you really need to get this technique down and this understanding to the T. So if you're interested, here's the link. So as you can see, side by side, I'm adding a very thick mix of Hooker's Green Deep. I'm almost using the paint fresh out of the tube, okay? And because our paper is still wet, it is spreading beautifully, it's soft, it's controlled, and I have time to figure out what my next step is going to be. So here I'm mixing the green with a little bit of yellow. I am using light shade somewhere, I'm using a darker shade somewhere, and I haven't mixed anything in the green yet, okay? This is straight out of the tube. Okay, we're going to start adding some darker shades now. So how do we darken the Hooker's Green Deep that we already have, which is pretty dark to begin with? Well, we're going to add blue and brown to that mix, and it's going to give us a very thick velvety dark mix, and we're going to use that to add darker tones here and there. You do not want to add black to the green, guys. We do not add black to anything to darken a watercolor, alright? I don't know why they gave it in the Camel Artist set. So you're gonna add brown and blue to darken the green further. And when you paint, you want to make sure you leave a few gaps here and there so that the tree looks natural and we have the sky reflecting through. Alright guys, so our tree is dry and it's looking so soft and beautiful. So now we're going to start painting the bark. So as you can see, the light is going to hit from the right hand side. So we want to show the highlight towards the right. So here I'm going to use yellow and I'm going to use burnt sienna to create an orangish mix, and I'm going to use that as our first layer. So I'm using a thin round brush, and when you do this you want to make sure that you try to stay within the line, because green is a pretty difficult color to work with, and if that area gets wet it might seep into our bark, and to lift that might get difficult. So just be a little patient, pay a little bit of attention and try to stay within the bark. And while our first layer is still wet, we're going to add a darker shade of burnt sienna. So here I'm mixing blue to darken it further, and I'm going to use that shade, wet and wet, towards the left hand side of the bark to highlight the darker areas. You want to leave the right side of the lighter shade as is and try to not paint the complete tree dark brown, okay? We have to show that the light is hitting from the right hand side, so try to leave that area untouched. And the wet and wet is going to happen towards the center, and I'm painting the dark side towards the left. Alright guys, now we're going to use that same dark mix we created for the bark, and we're going to paint the shadow of the tree. So if the light is hitting from the right hand side, the shadow is going to fall towards the left. So here I'm just going to paint small strokes sideways, and because the paper is cold pressed and you can see it's giving a beautiful texture without me doing anything. So it's beautiful guys, like just drag it across, thick paint, and it's going to give you a beautiful texture. Okay guys, now I'm going to use my rigger brush, and I'm going to use that same dark mix we created for that bark, and I've thinned that paint down to an ink-like consistency, so it's going to be easy for a paintbrush to glide. You can also use a thin round brush for it, but make sure that the point of the round brush is pretty thin, so maybe a number 2 or a 0 round brush would suffice. So you want to make sure that the branch is thick to thin, and the thinner you keep it towards the end, the better. Now I want you to observe this tree. The branches that we're painting right now won't show through if we paint it on the tree, the green area, because that's dark to begin with. So wherever I see gaps, I am trying to paint my branches there so that they're visible, and also it looks natural, because it might just camouflage in the green area. Okay, so now we're done with our dark highlights. Now time for my favorite light white highlights. So if you follow me on YouTube, you know that I use a white gel pen very often to highlight my watercolor, because it saves you the trouble of using masking fluid. So here I'm using my white gel pen and I'm going to lightly mask out the branches that we did on the grain area. So now it's going to be visible. You don't want to go overboard with it, just a few here and there. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please let me know in the comments below how it turned out for you, and trust me, give it a shot. It is very easy, and the foundation of any good landscape is painting beautiful trees. And I hope you learned something from this. And if you try this painting and you want me to give you some sort of constructive feedback, please send me your artwork on my Instagram page and I'll be happy to hear from you. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.